Alright, let's get started.
Hello, Diablo community. Welcome to another Diablo 4 developer update live stream. My name is Adam Fletcher. I am the community lead.
So as I was saying,
and of course, I'm joined by
I have a lot of strong opinions about Diablo 4.
You guys want to introduce yourselves?
I think it has a lot of work to do.
I am the lead designer for
And I'm going to be watching this, hoping that they change some of the things that I think the game suffers from, like the bosses and the nightmare dungeons and stuff like that. A lot of the core stuff. So
New York at Blizzard Albany, and we're doing the stream up here. And so now we have two different sets. We have one in Irvine and one in Albany, and we actually have another guest that will be joining us today. And it's a very familiar face to all our live streams. That's Mr. Adam Jackson. He is live from the Irvine studio. Hi, Adam. Good to see you. And we'll be talking to you soon because we're going to be talking about balance and classes.
So they have an Albany studio.
Joining,
That's kind of crazy.
Shortly, but we have a
Seems kind of random.
You know, a lot with Season 3. We announced it earlier this week with Season of the Construct. We've seen a lot of cool feedback and great feedback from players related to the trailer and everything that released out earlier this week. But we did want to talk a little bit, before we jump into Season 3 and those items, we do want to talk a little bit about, you know, the new year and obviously going through the holiday and Season 2 where we had Season of Blood where players got to jump in, of course, fight Lord Zir, jump into different blood harvests and everything. And what was awesome to see with Season of Blood was, you know, or Season of Blood is that we ended up getting really great feedback from players about how they enjoyed, you know, some of the aspects with it.
Raise the volume a little bit.
Just hearing that feedback has helped us a whole lot in terms of how we're going to build out Diablo 4, especially in future seasons. And one big thing that, you know, we introduced was the boss ladder, with, you know, of course, Uber Duriel being part of it. And it was a good opportunity for players to kind of
I'm not a huge fan of the boss ladder.
Players actually obtain Uber Uniques this season, and I will say, like, you know, we plan on having
because it sort of conflicts with the
shortly
design to allow players to farm each boss individually and farm what they want from the bosses, but the system itself kind of drags you to farm all of them. So it's a little counterproductive as far as what they want you to do.
We got a lot of feedback about abattoirs here, and this feedback is really important because we are planning on additional endgame activities in the future. I will say that Abattoir Zir will not be present in Season 3, but based off the feedback we ended up hearing from players,
I did not play Abattoir of Zir.
In the future about, you know, maybe next iterations or growth from what we've learned with that endgame feature with Abattoir Zir. So thanks again to the community for all the great feedback with that.
I definitely thought Season 2 was better than Season 1, but still a lot that needs to be done with this game. Still a lot that needs to be done, so
your weapons and everything like that. You had the opportunity for that. Another good opportunity for
those nightmare dungeons are just killers.
First, like, holiday event, and so we're actually gonna have future holiday events.
Killers of enjoyment.
Pretty soon in the future.
And those bosses are still terribly designed and boring and not fun. Not fun to have to go through.
And of course, at the end of the year, we ended up going over kind of all the big stats since Diablo 4 launched, and a ton of people have joined Diablo 4 to slay demons with us in Sanctuary, and a lot of people have died as well. And some of these stats, you know, these numbers have only grown since we posted these late last year. Of course, we had 37 million people died in the Butcher. Now more, for sure, since we ended up having that. We've had
the Butcher is pretty interesting.
Absolutely crazy. And, you know, lots of hardcore deaths, lots of hardcore deaths for people who choose to play.
The Butcher just like pops up wherever and then just trashes you.
Popular classes being the Sorcerer and the
Yep, Sorcerer and Necro, no shock.
Necromancer. Necromancer is a fan favorite. Has always been a fan favorite with D2 and D3.
I don't think I'm going to be playing Season 3. Because there are a lot of games in February I want to play.
I don't know what you guys were.
I want to play
for Season 3, but
The team
What
makes
is
fun of
that?
me. I play
I want to
Zork
play Power
every single
Rules.
season. That's my
I played
favorite.
Zork last season.
And Last Epoch comes out in February that I'm definitely going to
I
play.
might do that.
Pacific Drive is a
I did
smaller
Druid in season
title
1,
that
I
I'm
did Zork in season 2.
definitely going to play.
Going Necromancer in season 3, so I think that's going to be my choice there. But so it was great to see all the numbers
And
all
Persona
the
3,
stats from,
all those
Diablo 4
games
since launch.
will be taking
But
up my
today, we're
February.
here to talk about season 3, Season of the Construct.
And then I got to continue my
It's
Baldur's
arriving
Gate
January
3
23rd.
playthrough, of
Dan,
course.
do you want to give us a quick little rundown?
Sure, yeah. So Season of the Construct is packed with a lot of content. And so there's a lot of things we're going to cover coming up. I mean, the first thing we're going to talk about is our all-new quest line that delves beneath the sands of Kyrgyzstan. Nothing good happens beneath the sands of Kyrgyzstan, so that's where we're headed. And in addition to that, as you've seen from a lot of the promotional materials, we are now introducing a seasonal companion called the Seneschal Construct. And that is something that you can upgrade and really kind of round out your builds in new ways. In addition to that, we have a couple of new repeatable activities. The first is the Vaults, which is an all-new dungeon type. And the second is Arcane Tremors, which is a new overworld activity. And last but surely not least, in terms of the Season 3 package, is the Gauntlet and leaderboards. And those are coming pretty soon.
I'm looking forward to the leaderboards, definitely.
We'll give you a bit of a tease.
They needed that on launch, though.
So I know a ton of stuff for season.
This
3.
game
This
was
is,
way
most
too
definitely the
rushed
season yet for
in the
Diablo 4,
beginning.
with a lot of
And I still feel
content.
like they're
And as you
focusing
mentioned,
on
questline and
the
story being
wrong
the first
things. The
thing that we wanted
leaderboard,
to
not
dive
one of
into
them. That needed to be
Madeline, I think
in.
this is a good opportunity
Yes.
to talk
Well,
a
actually, the
little bit
leaderboard is
about,
one of them.
what
That's
we
one
can
of the things they
expect
should have had
from
in the
the
beginning.
Absolutely.
So,
As Dan mentioned, we have a new quest line for Season 3. In it, you are going to assist the mage Ayujan to purge the demon Malphus from the vaults of Zoltan Kuhl. Malphus has taken over the vaults, turned them into his own little kingdom, and has turned the hazards and the constructs inside of them against their makers. I think a good question to start with is kind of why constructs. It's a little bit of a departure from seasons past. You know, season 1 dealt with malignancy, and season 2 dealt with vampires, both stemming from Lilith's influence. But Sanctuary is such a big place. And so many different stories and lore, where present-day Sanctuary is kind of the Dark Ages. We've had, thousands of years of different technology and magic, and this is one of those stories. We spent a lot of time discussing as a team what we even wanted to do for Season 3. And the
focus a
story team really
little
fell
bit
in love
less
with,
on the
mage glands. We
backstory,
delved into,
get to the gameplay, get to the
Diablo
changes.
lore, we delved into the Sin War books, we delved into the Roderick Vault, etc. And the mage clans, for people that don't know, were these ancient mage societies that really were expertise in certain levels of magic. And we love the Visurai. They're typically the bad guys, typically delve into demotic magic, even though they're not traditionally evil per se.
By the way, the Season
And
2 storyline
Visurai
is
created
kind of
constructs.
a
They
throwaway.
took,
You don't really
machinery
have
and
to.
their demotic magic and made these
It's just
soldiers
there.
and these guards. Our protagonist, Ayujan, is not technically Visurai. He's part of the Ennead clan with Zoltan Kuhl, but their goal was to take these idea of constructs and make them their own, and do them in a different way.
Yeah, and Zoltan Kuhl is kind of a familiar face
He
for everyone
is.
in Diablo.
He's a cool dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
Definitely pun intended.
Zoltan played a part in the Diablo 3 story, and of
Yes.
course we saw him in Diablo Immortal as well.
Yes, Zoltan was one of the original Haradrim. Good old Uncle Tyrael gave him the original Soul Stones. It's like, hey, I trust you, take care of them. Zoltan went a little bit off script, and he's like, what if I made these better? And so he created his Dark Soul Stone, which was his own kind of flawed attempt at ending the Eternal Conflict. It didn't go quite as he expected, and the rest of Haradrim said, we don't really like what you're doing. you got to get out. So they killed him. We're too frightened of you. But Zoltan and Ayujan knew each other in their youth and became business partners and eventually friends. And they shared this vision of, if we can create our own version of constructs and create this alternate power source that's not using demonic magic, the Loom, these constructs can fight heaven and hell, and humanity can flourish. Unfortunately, it didn't go as expected. They couldn't get it right. And Zoltan was just like, you know what? I'm going to move on to bigger and greater things. This is a failure. Let's move on. And Ayujan was like, no, we have something here. Let's keep going. And unfortunately, that created a rift in their friendship. And that rift allowed for the demon Malphus to infiltrate their work. Malphus
Let's
is
get to the
demon
gameplay,
that you're gonna
please.
encounter in the quest line, and then fight an Uber version of him later in the season. He's a little bit different than our typical demon. You think of, big scary guy with horns. Like I said before, we took inspiration from Sin War, and they have a lot of different types of demons. They have different abilities, different shapes. One of them is like this stone liquid mass with a mouth on top. And so the original Malphus was like this red mist, and that allowed him to kind of sneak into corners that he wasn't supposed to. Malphus is a named demon, and he's one of terror, but he's very unimportant in the hierarchy of hell, and that kind of bothers him. We joked around on the team that he had a desk job in hell. So when he found the opportunity to sneak into Sanctuary and to corrupt the vaults, he's like, this is my time to shine. This is my kingdom. I'm going to rule it. And he did that successfully for many, many years. And he might have gotten away with it forever, except he was a little bit too prideful. He's like, I'd like to sneak out and leave the vaults.
Yeah, he's not satisfied with the vaults. He now wants to start trying to take over Sanctuary itself.
And that's where the player comes in.
Yeah.
So I think we have footage of the quest line, the early parts. You are going to start in Gaia Cool, where
Here we go.
Malphus's influence has
About time.
Villagers and demons don't typically go well. I can't even imagine their insurance rates. But they hire you and they're like, hey, something's going on, something up north, please figure it out for us. And so you find the first vault and you delve into it to try and get a sense of what's going on. And these are where you're going to start seeing the first hostile
All right, so this is
Malphus has corrupted. And find your own construct. You start finding pieces of it. You're going to keep traveling through, and eventually you're going to find Ayujan, who is in a less perfect than ideal situation.
Hopefully this doesn't take a whole lot of time to put together your construct.
He's like, thank you so much. I don't even know what's going on, but let's figure this out together. And he fixes the Seneschal construct for you. He's like, you're probably going to need this as we delve into and force Malphus out.
Yeah, and here we're seeing like part of the quest line, like obviously building up and kind of creating your own Seneschal construct. Yeah.
Now I think we have footage of the Malphus fight as well.
Oh yeah, we can jump into that.
So Malphus is our first stationary boss. He uses the environment, the hazards in the room, as well as his glaive to smack you around. There are different elements in the boss fight that are going to periodically switch.
I like that boss design, though.
This red mist, but for this fight, he is possessed the largest construct he could find, the Guardian.
It's definitely one of the better bosses that's been designed in this game.
In the background.
Yeah. So
and that's not saying much because the bar is pretty low.
Become like the embodiment. It's the vault itself, and the vault is now coming alive to try and kill you.
When you delve into the vaults, it's definitely going through his literal body.
Yep.
He definitely wants you out. He doesn't want you in there. He's going to he'd throw everything in the kitchen sink at you.
Yep.
We also have footage of our new seasonal town, the Gate Hall. This is kind of the gateway between the vaults and the upper world. You're going to go through in the quest line, and then it's going to turn into a town for you to use. Has a waypoint, so easy travel. Most of the vendors that you know and love, you can see here that they're actually construct vendors that Ayujan has fixed for you to help you out. And here you're going to be accessing the vaults. You can also access them in the overworld if you choose so. So it should be a really convenient place for you to visit and turn into your main hub for the season.
Yeah, we expect a lot of players will be hanging out here in the gate hall, since all your vendors will be here. It'll be easy access to the vaults and everything. So kind of the new hub specifically for Season 3. So. Yeah, sounds really cool. Yeah, really excited for the quest line and story for Season 3. Obviously, we talked about Seneschal constructs and how that's actually going to be a big part of the storyline. People have been talking about it all this week with, seeing the footage of like, wow, it looks like we have these little companions with us now for Season 3. So, Dan, can you talk us a little bit about, what Seneschal construct would be for players?
So the Seneschal construct is a seasonal companion. And the seasonal companion is kind of the embodiment of your power chase for the season. So every season we try to develop a new type of power chase, and power is really important to our players. Obviously this is a game about becoming super powerful and killing lots of demons, and we're always trying to find new ways to do that. So we really wanted to stretch ourselves this season and find a way that players hadn't seen before.
Okay.
And so
they always, I don't know why they use so many like complicated naming structures of their things, but
and it has
Seneschal
abilities.
And I will note, you can pet your construct, your Seneschal.
Oh, you can pet it.
You have to be able to pet it. So yes,
absolutely
important.
Yeah, and so you can have 2 skills on your Seneschal construct. Those are given to the construct using what is called a governing stone. And governing stones are these semi-precious stones that you can find throughout your adventures in Season 3. They drop in a lot of those repeatable activities I mentioned, which we'll cover soon. And there's lots of different types. I think there's about 12 that you can slot in.
Oh, so this is basically the vampire powers, but on a construct.
It's cool, don't get me wrong, but we want
except that you have to find the skill drops.
Modify those skills however they saw fit. And so we've also developed 27 different tuning stones, another type of stone, that you can slot in then to modify that skill. And so you've got those 2 governing stones, and then each governing stone has 3 different tuning stones that can modify it and just create really wild combinations of powers that'll allow players to experiment how they see fit. And so kind of with that breadth of powers, then you've got a lot of different options for being able to kind of round out your build and create new types of ways to kill demons.
Awesome. So, that's very cool. It sounds really cool. Yeah. And I think we might actually have some examples and footage of like, what some of these would be.
So let me tell you what's going on here.
Melee, ranged, and utility.
Menu. And this is in the inventory UI, but it's its own separate
tuning
UI,
stones.
So, your construct is not going to take up your traditional inventory space. And this construct has 2 governing stones equipped right now. One is called Focus Fire, which was that beam of fire that was coming out. The other one is called Lightning Bolt. And
if I do Dabble in Season 3,
like I said,
I'm probably going to make a barbarian.
You're killing some folks here. But we want to.
And I would probably spec this to be
so in addition to being
ranged.
Able to get stones as drops from activities, you can also craft stones. And so we've gone to our gate hall here, and we're crafting a new stone. We're going to see what we get. In this case, it's a pummel stone, a governing stone. I already have that skill, so it's just going to count towards XP, towards leveling up pummel. And I'm going to kit out my Seneschal a little bit different. So we've got Focus Fire, and I think the first thing
they have legendary stones.
Fancy way of saying that it's going to increase the area of
so that's going to be the
we're also going to add electrocution.
Be the goal.
Even though Focus Fire is a fire attack, electrocution's going to add some lightning damage
to upgrade those legendaries.
It's also add a little bit of chance of stun. And so now we're dipping our toes into this crowd control. And then finally, we're going to add arcing support. And arcing support's really cool
Oh, I think it's very good UI to put the
And so now let's see what that power is going to look
the
like
name
when we
of the
bring it back
skill
up.
right next to the box. That's actually really
All right,
good,
so here
good design
now,
decision.
You can see that focus fire is changing.
Give them credit where it's due.
You can see that some of them are getting stunned, little electricity around them, and it had a bigger area of effect. Similarly, if we were to apply some of these to the lightning bolt attack, let's say we gave it multi-shot in that arcing support, now it can just blast through enemies. So yeah, it's got a lot of options there.
So we're kind of seeing some examples of what players can potentially do with their seneschal constructs and actually make adjustments and modify them to kind of suit your specific playstyle. I think a big question is like, can you actually add, maybe some status effects or things like that? Like, can you potentially add in a tuning stone that may make enemies like vulnerable, for instance?
Yes, absolutely.
Sorry for that
So,
outside
again, we wanted
noise
to
that
give
might have.
all of you a lot of different options to play with. We want this to be a toy that you can experiment with. And so that means that, some of the examples we showed were more damage dealing, where the seneschal is doing the damage. But then we also want to give players the ability to just kind of set up, enemies for you to go in and, land the killing blow. So there are a lot of different support stones that can make things vulnerable, bleed things, electrocute them, chill them. I mean, the list goes on. I mean, pretty much any of the.
I guess the one balancing
your possibilities are
positive that it was clear that vampire powers caused players to be kind of broken. So players are not, the actual player is not going to be as broken in this league as, or the season I should say, as in season 2. So
scale 1-to-1 with like specific like secondary type of stats or even things that are associated with your actual character. So things like attack rating or crit chance, for instance. Yeah, it was very important for the seneschal to feel as if it was an extension of you if you wanted to be that. Also, we really didn't want to get a seneschal that was just outclassed when you got to level 100, because then where's the fun, right? So yes, absolutely, the seneschal will become more powerful as you become more powerful. Awesome.
All right.
Yeah, so seneschal constructs obviously playing a huge role, and with the construct and you now being able to customize and change things up for how you want to play, there's new challenges and that are associated with the season 3 season of the construct, and one of them is vaults, which I know we do want to dive a little bit more into specifically. So yeah, do you guys want to talk a little bit more about vaults?
Sure. Vaults are a new dungeon for the season, and we have 4 types of vaults. Like I said before, they are this extension of Malphus. And because of that, he's turned the hazards inside of them into enemies in and of themselves. We wanted to explore the fantasy of a environment that was hostile, and it was ready to kill you often, and so they're filled with hazards that, spinning fires of death, floor plates that come alive, arrows that shoot out of the walls, and with our construct enemies. I think we have some footage of the vaults as well to kind of walk you through it. So yeah, constructs in them per usual. These, because they're so hostile and dangerous, we wanted them to have a good, be lucrative and be risk reward. So we have a lot of different loot. I think a little bit later in the video, there's like an explosion of gold, and that's just going to be common.
And I wonder how many wasteful
our dungeon designers,
things that they make you do in these.
Dungeon experience,
wasting
you get a pop-up
time.
and you're like, okay, it's telling me to kill all the enemies. I know what to do. The dungeon designers wanted to explore a little bit of a.
So it's like
I'm
a
not
little
sure what I'm gonna be
labyrinth kind of
experiencing. I have
thing.
to go find my objective, and so the objectives are vague a little bit on purpose, but typically vaults end in this, what we call informally as a death room, a danger room, where it is, everything is being thrown at you, all the traps from the vault accumulated in one
Traps.
large room.
Wonder where they got that idea.
Yeah, we're really excited it's a bit of new gameplay, dodging traps.
Stacked full of traps.
This is one of the danger rooms, for example. Yeah, we're really excited to get people to dive into this and experiment.
And obviously with vaults, like tons of traps here.
I'm really not a fan of that kind of design for this kind of game.
And rewards associated with those.
I don't like it in Path of Exile, and I don't like it
has outlined a lot of the risks associated with vaults. I mean, those hazards.
You don't need to be playing Mario and
but if we're putting
Diablo
a lot of risks in front of you guys,
and
we want to make sure
ARPGs,
there's a lot of rewards too. So you saw
trying
a little
to
bit of it already
avoid
with, like, some of the basic
things
chests
like that,
in
and
the vaults have been souped up, so they're more rewarding than those chests you'd find in other dungeons. But there's another mechanic at play too, and that's called Zoltan's Warding. So as you enter Vault, after you've cleared some of Malphas's influence out of the vault, you can find the statue of Zoltan Kuhl, because of course Zoltan Kuhl,
He has to have a statue.
he's got to have a statue in every vault. I mean, that's just how he rolls, right? So if you're able to find a special, it's called a Pearl of Warding, you can offer that to the statue, and in return, the statue is going to grant you Zoltan's Warding. This is a buff. It doesn't really help your combat too much, but what it does is it gives you additional rewards, and you can see right there, there's kind of that glowing one to the side with the icon. That is a ward-woven chest that contains extra rewards if you're able to keep that buff. And so as you get better and better at the vaults, you're going to start basically challenging yourself to keep the buff. And you keep the buff by avoiding the hazards. And so the gameplay really becomes focused on trying to make sure that you're moving as cleanly as possible through the vaults, in addition to fighting the enemies in order to get the highest payout.
And I if you make like mistakes, like I know I will make mistakes.
Yes.
Like I am a person that gets hit by like every single trap under the sun. Are there ways of being able to like help mitigate like some of those types of mistakes?
You can have multiple stacks of buffs. So one pearl is, I believe, 3 stacks.
Yeah.
And so if you want to go grind the overworld activity to get the pearls, you're like, okay, I have a bunch of stacks. I have a really good
they have an
chest.
overworld
And if
activity.
you don't make it, and stacks
So
left.
that
there
should
were 2
be-
chests at the end. You still
I
always
guess
get
that's what everyone's going to be doing.
loot, but the super great loot comes from Zoltan's Warding.
Yep.
Got it. So yeah, so there are opportunities for players to actually get multiple chests.
Yes.
And you can actually have multiple stacks of warding to essentially create a buffer if you know
Yes.
you're planning on playing a little bit more sloppy.
If
or
you
something
really,
like that.
really want to brute force your way through, you can, but you've got to invest a little more time.
Got it. No, that makes sense. That's great to know. And like I guess with the Pearls in the Overworld activity, I know that has like to earn those types of buffs. Like how do players actually end up doing
Right, so that's our second repeatable activity that I'd mentioned, which is the
All
Arcane
right.
Tremors. And so Arcane Tremors is a new type of overworld activity that's really localized around the entrances of the vault. So remember how we were talking about Malphas, and Malphas's sites have become grander now that he controls all the vaults. And so all the constructs are starting to spill out into Sanctuary and cause trouble. Additionally, some new types of hazards have unearthed and are starting to appear around the vaults. And so it's your
Okay.
job to every so often go in and beat back
That's
all these construct invasions or incursions, essentially.
so it looks
that are
like
creating the tremors.
very similar to the
So I can
season
talk a little bit
2.
about this activity. We can queue up some video for that too. And so here you've arrived and you see basically a roaming band of constructs, and obviously
Okay.
it's your job to go in and kill them and send them back to where they came from. But that's not all you need to do within this activity. What you're looking to do to really advance the activity is look for these cores that you can use to draw out Malphas's most powerful lieutenants. And so you're getting a core here from an obelisk, which is an overworld hazard, and you've got to make sure to not get hit by that. And if you collect enough cores, you're able to deposit them in a brazier, which you can see on screen here glowing. And the brazier is a signal that you are now challenging one of the heralds of Malphas. And the herald of Malphas you see appearing right there. You and hopefully a bunch of other of your friends will, gang up and defeat the herald of Malphas. Get some cool rewards in addition to those pearls that we
I
were
wonder if
talking about
that's
before,
like the
which you can then use
top
to
boss
supercharge your
from
rewards
season
elsewhere.
2.
Awesome. Yeah, and I know like
Season
this
2
being
one
a
wasn't
world
that difficult.
activity, one thing that, and this is based off of feedback that we've gotten from the community as well, even with Season of Blood, there was Blood Harvest, which were overworld activities, and now there's kind of activities everywhere. And they all have different various rewards for the player, whether that's vaults, whether that's doing some of the activities on the overworld for this season. You have opportunities of actually being able to get rewards kind of all over the place.
Yeah, our intention is for Season 1 you kind of stayed in tunnels, and then Season 2 you kind of stayed in the overworld most of the time. We wouldn't want to make the players feel like they're stuck and they can only stay in one place and this is it. So the intention is you do some dungeons, you do some overworld activities, maybe do some bounties along the way. You should feel like you're mobile and not, hey, I have to stay here for the season.
Yep.
Yeah, and just another thing that I know we briefly touched on, which was vaults and how there are nightmare variations of that.
Yes.
And that's something that is additional to just going through vaults as well. So.
Yep. Yeah, the vaults are fully dungeons in that respect, and so we
So
have the
those
ability and
vaults
have made nightmare versions
are
of
going to
those
be
dungeons.
annoying
Nightmare
to
versions of the
do,
dungeons
I guess.
obviously have more difficult combat.
Seems
They
like
also
it'll
have a lot more
benefit
rewards. So
sorceress
chests we
with
talked about before,
teleport,
the ward-woven chests,
and
you actually get more of those as you
I guess
advance in
leap
the nightmare
would work
system.
for
So the
barbarian.
vault runs become even more and more rewarding in that case.
Yeah, and like, how would you access something like
Seems
that?
like Necromancer
So,
might get
we're gonna use
screwed the
Nightmare
most.
Dungeon sigil system, but we've created a way that the game can now award unique seasonal sigils, and in this case, they're called vault sigils. And so we did that because, you know, for those folks who really want to focus in on vault play, you can earn the vault sigils, and now you can target farm the vaults instead of leaving it up to random chance.
Very cool.
And with one last dungeon, the
yes.
Mega Uber dungeon. It's kind of it's very large. It's the
All right,
best,
let's hear about
features
this.
of all the other vaults put into one. and
Mega
that is where
Uber
Malthus
dungeon.
lives. And so you will be quest line, you'll defeat him, and then Uber version of him post quest line for the rest of the season.
And so there is an Uber version of Malthus that is even more challenging than the Quest version. And he kind of sits parallel to the current boss ladder. So you don't need to do him for the boss ladder, but it's certainly going to be a bonus for you if you do.
Awesome. So yeah, way more additional content in this season, and we have a lot of different ways of being able to play and take your character. You can do it activities on the overworld. You can actually use those activities to help you out in the vaults. You can do nightmare variations of the vaults. We have Uber vaults now, or with a larger, more difficult vault with you know, a new boss here for Season 3 as well. And this is just a little bit of what we have for Season 3 with, you know, of course, we have Seneschal Constructs, which will be around with you all the time. And with that, we of course have one additional component to Season 3.
That's right.
And that's with the Gauntlet and Leaderboard. And I will caveat, like, I know we mentioned this in the blog earlier this week. So the Gauntlet and Leaderboard are actually not going to launch at the start of this season.
Oh, come on.
And that's really because, you know, we want players to actually go through the season and actually grow and learn the season with their character before we actually launch
This
the
is
leaderboard.
embarrassing.
So we will have information on when we actually do launch Gauntlet and Leaderboards really soon. But
Not
again, I
having
want to
leaderboards
dive
at
deeper
launch.
into what leaderboards are and
Oh,
what the
boy.
Gauntlet is for players, so they have a better idea.
Yeah, so a lot of you saw a taste
That's
at
pretty bad.
BlizzCon of what the Gauntlet and the Trials leaderboards are going to be.
They need
And so we go a bit
leaderboards
more depth here.
as soon as possible.
and
Like,
hopefully start to answer some of your questions. So the Gauntlet is another new dungeon type. The Gauntlet is something
All right, let's
that
see what the
unlocks with
Gauntlet
overall
is.
leaderboard feature in World Tier 4. And basically that means that it's targeting more of your in-game players at this point. Folks who have really decided on a build, they're starting to really round it out. It's become more powerful, and now they want to prove their might, not just to themselves, but, you know, obviously to show off and have bragging rights. So the Gauntlet itself, new type of dungeon, is kind of based around 3 different principles. The first is that it is fixed seed. The second is that it is non-linear. And thirdly, like I said, it's there to prove your might. And so I'm going to kind of unpack that a little bit. Fixed seed means really that it is trying to be as fair as possible for everyone.
Everyone's got the
gets
same layout.
the same gauntlet every week. And so you're not fishing for, the best roll of a rift or something like that.
Yeah.
It's really a level playing field at this point. And let me tell you, that was kind of hard to do. Our game is not very good at doing one thing. It loves to do random things. But in this case, we felt competition demanded that it be fair.
Yeah.
Non-linear is really all about how the dungeon is laid out. It is not a dungeon where you travel from the beginning to the end. It's not about trying to get to the end as quickly as possible. It's about the choices you make while you're within that dungeon. And so the layout basically allows you to develop all manner of strategies. I mean, when we had people testing the dungeons, the gauntlets, there would be arguments over, or not even arguments, sometimes people would just kind of say, what was the best path you took? Oh, I think I can do better than that. And so a lot of it is trying to figure out your way through the dungeon each week. And then
So is it a time trial, I guess?
Is about killing enemies and gathering what we're calling proofs of might, and then trying to get the highest score possible. So it's not about just going fast. Certainly going fast helps. But it's really about how effective and efficient are you at combat. And that's going to be reflected in your score. And so at the end of a gauntlet, you're going to get a score. And you're going to say, okay, can I do better than that? And we're going to say, well, we've got a couple targets you can try and hit, but really you're going to be shooting for those leaderboards.
Yeah.
But let's circle back on strategies a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think we've got a little bit of video to help with that. So here's the gauntlet right here. It, for all intents and purposes, looks like a normal dungeon.
Let's see.
But we said, again, it's World Tier
Alright,
4.
what's that,
targeting
8-minute
level
timer?
100 players, so we're going to throw a dungeon boss at you right at the
Why not?
start.
Yeah, and I will note, I know we're mentioning level 100. Technically, you can
Okay.
get gauntlet before level 100. It's just probably more efficient to do it at level 100, just because it is an end game activity and it'll be challenging.
I mean, if you think you're ready to tackle
Was that a
gauntlet below level
124?
100, by all means, it's not tuned that way. And so here, you're fighting, the Tomb Lord, and he's pretty powerful, but you're more powerful. In that case, you defeated him. Now, the cool thing about defeating that boss is it doesn't drop loot, it drops a shrine. And that shrine can then be used as a power-up to further increase your power within the gauntlet.
That makes
there's other types
sense.
of new shrines within the gauntlet, too. We just hit previously here a pillar of proving. And that's a shrine that actually respawns all the enemies around you. Now, why would you want to do that? Because you want to kill them again and get their score, right? And so we've got the Pillar of Proving, we've got the Pillar of Glory, which is a way to basically get a multiplier on your score. And we've even got chests scattered all throughout the dungeon that you can earn keys for. And you see keys up.
I don't know how I feel about
And
this
those keys give
being
you even
level
additional score.
100.
So a lot of the strategy
A
of the
level
gauntlet
100
is,
thing.
as a solo player at least, trying to
I
find
think they need
the most
to
optimal path
have
through it,
lower level
and to use
gauntlets
that as a way to, take your really cool build
with
and
caps,
get the highest
level
score
caps.
And something we saw in the footage, obviously the first thing we ran into was a boss, like a Tomb Lord right there. And so you could technically take that Tomb Lord further into the dungeon if you want to.
I'll just say
You're not stuck
this.
in the room.
Yeah,
I don't have a level
you're not
100
stuck in the
character
room.
yet.
You can draw
It's 'cause I
the
find
Tomb
Nightmare
Lord right
Dungeons
next to another
boring.
shrine and do a combo and then start building up even higher score.
Exactly, and so that's the thing I think with gauntlets. Like
I probably won't get to it if the Nightmare Dungeons are still boring, and then I'm not going to get to it.
Leaderboards will be weekly. We're going to see players kind of create different combinations of what's the best way of optimizing for the best score possible. Taking advantage of the shrines, taking advantage of the chests, taking advantage of should I drag a bunch of enemies over here just because I know I'll have a shrine ready and stuff like that. So it's going to actually be really interesting to see, and I think it adds even more complexity to the idea once you start adding additional players to it as well.
Yeah, no, we had a lot of fun testing this, especially in parties, because parties can then start dividing and conquering what you need to do in order to get that high score. And so we expect party scores to be, frankly, ridiculous.
Parties, got to play play with friends there for that and stuff. And so I know with leaderboards, when you're looking at leaderboards, like I think we actually have an image of the leaderboards here, just like a quick throw up here, but you can see based off of how leaderboards are, there is
All right, so they have class ladder
for players, but then you can you have the ability of actually being able to filter by class, so you can see where you are within your own class.
Yeah, so each class does have a unique ladder, and that's those first 5 icons you see right there represent each of those classes if you're playing solo. And that was really important to us because we were talking about that component of fairness that we want. To make sure that the competition is a level playing field. We understand that
So this is
ball lightning
gauntlet
sword, for example,
leaderboards.
Probably shouldn't be compared to a rogue or something like that. And so we allow each class to compete independently. And then there are also ladders for each of the different party sizes, because obviously a 4-person party probably is going to be able to cover more ground than a 2-person party. And so that actually creates 8 ladders with leaderboards right there. And then we also multiply that by 2 because we have separate ladders for our hardcore players, because they are, well, they're competing on hardcore mode. They should get their own ladders.
Exactly, exactly.
And then we also have filters and leaderboards for the different platforms.
Yeah, so you can actually compare yourself. If you're playing on Xbox, you can compare yourself to other players on Xbox. Same thing for PC, which is great to see.
So wait, do they not have an overall ladder, or
see where we stack against other players in the leaderboard?
And that all gets rolled up into
I'm
a global
confused.
leaderboard as well. And all of those leaderboards we mentioned, you are also able to filter by friend and by clan if you want to be able just to see the people you're familiar with and not compete with kind of the community at large.
Yeah, so it's catered and customized to like allow players to actually really get into like almost like a granular type of look of how they may compete against just maybe everyone, or maybe just everyone on Xbox, or maybe just your friends, or maybe just people in your clan, which is really cool to see. And of course, with leaderboards and tackling leaderboards, as you mentioned, it is a separate dungeon. There are kind of rewards associated with leaderboards.
That's right. So,
okay, this is good.
Up here though, the ultimate reward of a leaderboard is glory and bragging rights.
Exactly.
And so, only the top 1,000 players during a week are going to be able to get on the leaderboards, and it's going to be a pretty big accomplishment, but we got to do a little bit better than that. And so not only do we have the weekly leaderboards, we have the Hall of the Ancients, which is the top 10 players from every ladder each week get written to the Hall of the Ancients. Now, unlike the weekly leaderboard, the Hall of the Ancients don't reset. And so that is a permanent record of everyone who is the best of the best each week, each season. And it's not going to ever get erased, going to be there forevermore.
So yeah, you always have bragging rights if you ever want to show to other people, like even if you come back like in a later season or something, you can always go like,
that seems kind of interesting.
But we've got some additional rewards too. We've got some neat cosmetics for folks who, maybe
they're adding a lot of activities to the game, clearly. Get people invested.
Another type of reward called seals.
But a lot of these seem
I like to think of
end
myself
game
like I could compete, but I
activity.
Know better than that. I am never going to be ranking on those leaderboards ever.
They need something to keep me interested
for players, frankly,
from 80 to 100.
Who just not ready for the leaderboards yet. And so what the seals are is, let me describe it this way. So we've got that ladder we were describing, right? And each rung of that ladder is going to have a seal associated with it. And so as you get better and better each week for that gauntlet, you're going to be able to earn seals and start ranking up in terms of the seals that you have. And it's going to go from kind of, I believe it's called Seal of the Blooded, which is the baseline, all the way up to Seal of the Worthy. And once you hit Seal of the Worthy, now you're ready, according to the game, to be able to compete in the leaderboards. So for myself, I'm probably just going to be trying to get Seal of the Worthy each week.
Okay.
But it's going to be pretty cool.
With you.
Seal of the Worthy is still something that's pretty cool that you can display to other players to let them know that, you're still pretty good at the leaderboards. It's just maybe you're not on the leaderboard itself.
I believe you.
Yeah.
We believe you.
Yeah, belief is great, but I know my limits. So.
Okay.
So lots of cool stuff for season 3. Gauntlet being a huge part of it. As we mentioned right at the beginning, that Gauntlet won't be at the start of the season, but we do plan. It is a season 3 thing. It is coming in season 3. We just want to make sure that players can actually grow their characters at the beginning of season 3. It's not like a speed run type of thing, just to jump into Gauntlet, especially on the first week of Gauntlet, if we were to have it with the launch of the actual season. So
come on,
players can we'll hear more news about when Gauntlet actually hits really soon. We'll have information on that, and we'll be sharing that with players. But thank you guys for sharing a little bit about some of those season 3 components. Of course, with a new season, there's a new season journey, and there is a new battle pass. There's a lot of feedback that we got from players, and some data that we actually saw from players related to season journey, and some optimizations that we've kind of made to make it a little bit more friendly, a little bit better for players specifically. I know one big thing that we ended up hitting on specifically was, for instance, like the one of the components for season journey last season was like, hey, you need to kill 10 people in PvP, which made it a little difficult for some people, and we even saw that in some of our data from players.
I don't really care about PvP in this game.
We're listening to your feedback and
do not care about PvP at all.
PvP objectives just aren't that popular, and so because we're always keeping an eye on improving the game and improving the objectives for the season journey, we decided to modify some of the PvP objectives that exist. And then there's one in particular that we ripped out. It just had such a low completion rate.
So yeah, there's been optimizations based off of player feedback, and of course data that we've seen from that end. And then I know that one big thing is like some of the rewards associated with season journey. We kind of amped them up a little bit.
No, it's super important for us to make sure that the season journey is rewarding. I mean, it's one of the backbones of our season, and if folks feel as if they're not compelled to go in and participate, then that's a miss for us. So we went back and really took a close
Daniel
look at the
Tengway,
them up in a couple of key ways.
lead seasons designer. I don't think I've seen him in the chess
we
before.
made sure that it was a good vehicle for earning
the Campfires,
some of those governing stones and tuning stones we talked about. And so you actually get an advanced look for some of those governing and tuning stones if you play the season journey. And so you'll get the drops a little bit sooner, and that'll give you a little more of a leg up with stepping out your Seneschal. The other thing we did is we looked at those later chapters, Champion and Slayer and Destroyer, and we said, wow, those still don't feel rewarding enough. I mean, we're asking players to do a lot there. We're asking them to go into the boss ladder, defeat bosses, really invest a lot of time. So we wanted to make sure those rewards felt meaty. And so we added a number of ancestral legendaries there, including some that are 925 eye power.
Nice.
So hopefully that will be something that folks will really enjoy, and get more folks wanting to take that journey with the season.
Also, something slightly related to season journey and feedback is we got some feedback that previously for our quest lines you had to complete certain levels of season journey to even progress in the quest line. Got a lot of feedback. People didn't like it. We don't want people not to feel good with it. So starting season 3, you can just do it start to finish. There's no season journey break.
Yep.
Very
so
cool.
Okay.
No longer says level up to chapter 3 of the season journey.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, it's and again, community feedback has been so helpful for us, especially as we have been iterating on seasons and going from season to season. So it's been super great. Another big.
For some reason, this feels
at least,
very slow.
With season 3.
This presentation seems like it's very slow paced.
I've been looking forward to. First, actually,
could be a little quicker, I think. We're about, like 40 minutes in? 50 minutes in?
One big thing I know that was really popular with season 2 was the town portal.
I feel like a lot of this could have been done in like 20 to 30, probably.
Like the one person that's rolling with like the angelic wings one. if there's other people like that, like shout out to those people. You're part of my crew. But there are also cool new skins and of course new emotes that are coming with the new premium battle pass for season 3. And then one item that I think we actually haven't really added to since launch is emblems specifically. Emblems are kind of like on your character title or on your character on the
new
emblems. I have been rocking
stuff
the
that
one for a long time. I'm gonna put it into
we don't
retirement,
really care about a whole lot.
Adding new ones here. I believe we're adding.
I'm only interested in gameplay changes.
You will get 2 new emblems per your adventures in the season journey, and then 3 through the battle pass.
Awesome. So yeah, we're adding in emblems. I know that's something that people were asking about because we've always had the 3 at launch.
All right.
So this now gives you the opportunity of actually collecting additional
Let's see
emblems in
changes
season 3.
to
And of course,
existing
season blessings
gameplay
getting,
features.
adjusted for the new season.
Oh, Smoldering
because with the last
Ashes.
season,
Interesting.
Of course, they were specifically catered towards Season of Blood. This one is, of course, being updated for season 3, including items that affect like tuning stones, for instance, specifically for players. So season blessings will be getting updated for this new season. And then I know that one thing that people, and something I mentioned in the beginning, which is the boss ladder items, that is most definitely coming back for season 3, so players can expect to have the opportunity of being able to tackle through the boss ladder. And we actually do have some optimizations that we'll be talking about here really shortly related to being able to jump into boss ladders. So yeah, lots of stuff for season 3.
Yes.
It's a big season.
Boss ladders.
Biggest season yet for Diablo 4, and you know we covered a lot. I'm looking forward to people jumping in. It begins on January 23rd, where players will be able to actually jump in and create new.
January
characters for the season.
23rd is
Dan, Madeline, thank you guys so much.
Tuesday.
Really appreciate it. And then I know
I
for the
guess I
next
could
part of
try it
our
out
broadcast, we're actually going to use some amazing tech
for one stream.
We're doing this because
Just to
we
see
now have
what
2
it
different
is,
sets.
and-
One here in Albany, which is themed like Cathedral of Light. You know, we're in a cold
I don't know.
environment.
I'm kind of looking at Pal World as the game
As a California person,
I'm sorry.
to
I landed lots of snow.
max out until
It's like
February.
Cathedral of Light, Fracture Peaks, you know, kind of feeling. And of course, we'll be going to Irvine, where we're in like the. I hate to say the bits of hell. Irvine is not like hell, I promise. I lived there. But our studio is like that, and we are going to be joined by Adam Jackson. Adam, hopefully.
Adam Jackson. This guy is good.
Hey,
I really like this guy.
I can hear you live from Irvine.
Cool.
Adam, you know, they always call it the Adam and Adam show whenever you and I are on. And of course, we're going to be talking a little bit about some of the balance changes coming with season 3 and what players can expect. And a little bit about some of the philosophy as well of what you have kind of, or what you want to actually present to the players of what they can expect going forward, especially with Gauntlet being involved. So do you want to take it away?
Yeah, totally. Got lots to talk about today, so I'm pretty excited.
Here we go.
So I'm really going to be going over 3 different major topics today when we talk about what's coming in for Season 3 and beyond. So the first one is, I think, what everybody expects. We have some new class updates coming.
Patch notes
A little bit of
soon.
a caveat here, though. I'm not going to be going over every single note or every single update, but I am going to give you kind of a high level of what's coming for every class. But you'll definitely find out some more stuff when you look into the patch notes and see other things we're doing.
This is what I
Patch
came
notes are gonna be
for.
coming out very soon, like tomorrow. Is my
Tomorrow,
understanding.
actually,
So-
yeah. They're coming out tomorrow, so players can expect to see them tomorrow. We'll give you a preview.
Whenever
today,
I
you'll get
watch
a full
this
patch.
guy, Adam Jackson, I get the
Correct.
feeling
So
that
it'll be a
this guy
preview,
knows
but,
what
you know,
he's
you'll still get
talking
an idea of
about.
kind of what we're thinking,
So-
what we're doing. Next, I want to do a brief explanation of kind of how we currently view
What
class
he-
balance. You know, the game's gone through.
he
a lot.
always
We've been out for a
talks
little while.
with
We also have the
confidence
Gauntlet coming. So,
and clearly
you know, a lot of changes
understands
coming, and we're going to be adapting
everything
to it.
he's saying.
And then the last thing is kind of a roadmap for our plans for seasonal updates going forward. I kind of want to give people some more concrete ideas of when we update and how we update. So first, we're going to start with the class updates.
All right.
So first, for the
Barbarian,
we've got a few things
what I'll
going on.
probably be
The
playing,
first one is some big improvements.
even if
for
I only
Charge.
play for a small
You know,
bit.
right now, Charge is, you know, you need a bunch of different legendaries and other effects to make it really kind of sing and be powerful. And we're going to be moving a lot of power to the baseline skill
Charge,
from
okay.
legendaries and other effects. It's going to do a lot more damage now than it did before. We might be insane, but I think it's really cool, and so we're going to do it. But you can see here kind of season 2 what the damage numbers look like. You know, did like 1,200, and then season 3 it's like 12,000. So, you know, like 8x or something like that. So a lot of damage now, baseline. Of course, legendaries are adjusted to compensate, but yeah, you should have a lot more fun with it out the gate. We're also doing a lot of buffs to key passives, such as Walking Arsenal, to kind of keep them up to date.
I guess everyone's going to be playing Charge.
That shall not be named. And then also we're adjusting a lot of shouts. You know, we got a lot of feedback that players don't really like feeling kind of mandatory that they put all the different shouts on their bar. I played a Barbarian last season. I know how it feels. So we're trying to kind of walk this line where we want it to be fun and you can put all the shouts on your bar, but it's not required and you kind of feel like there's good reasons not to. So we've done some changes there.
Okay.
And, you know, if I were a betting man, I'd say I'd put
buffs
my money
coming
into,
to Charge and key
passives. As far as
passives.
things that I think you'll be happy to see. So I think you'll be kind of happy with our changes there.
You know, Adam, whenever we have you on, you have to talk about class stonks, and this is
I
class
do like
stonks.
my stonks.
Yes.
Charge might also be popular because it will
Again, these aren't
make
all the
people
changes,
fly
these are
through
just
levels a lot
stuff.
quicker.
First one is, you know, we know that Sorcerer players have kind of had some pain trying to apply vulnerable to enemies, so we're giving it to Lightning Spear now. So just baseline, Lightning Spear, when it crits enemies, will now make them vulnerable.
Okay.
So you have another avenue that isn't Frost Nova.
Lightning Spear. I don't think I used that
We
one.
also have some buffs to various Paragon legendary
Lightning
nodes that
Source
you can
was
look
my
forward to
first
that kind of bump it
character.
up or make some things stronger. And last but not least, for you Meteor fans, Meteor build is getting quite a few updates and buffs across the board. We also are giving them a new unique
Meteor.
that kind of changes how you think about it and how it plays. That I'll be showing off in a little bit. So
Can't wait to see it. It's so good. It's so good.
Alright, so
totally.
Source
So
gets
again,
Meteor.
Here, Meteor players and Elemental Summoner players, like the ones that like to use the different conjurations. We got some stuff there in the legendary or the Paragon legendary node space that should make you happy.
Elemental Summers, okay.
And next we've got the Rogue.
Rogue.
So we've got quite a few changes coming to the Rogue. There's a lot of buffs to really underuse skill and skill upgrades.
I like the
a lot of
Rogue. I
people
played
use,
Rogue in
Twisting
beta,
Blades
but
and Poison Imbue and things like that. And we're really
there's a lot
targeting some of
going
the
on
things
with
that people
Rogue.
aren't using so much
Like, you
and
gotta
getting some
constantly
love.
be moving around.
In particular,
It
we're
just
targeting
took a lot of
ranged
energy
builds to
out of
make them
me,
more
and
viable and fun.
I don't know.
I think it's the precision key passive.
Rogue might
is
be
getting a
my
bit of a
next
rework,
character
and a lot of
after
stuff
this
coming for
one.
Things like penetrating shot and stuff like that. And we're also updating pretty much all the range uniques, including Windforce, Skyhunter, and Eaglehorn. They're going to be
I went a
quite
full
bit more
melee
useful and powerful, I
Rogue,
think.
my first one.
So here, again, some buffs coming really to
Maybe
range
if I
builds
use
in general,
range,
and
it
also
won't be quite
Caltrops
as
is
bad.
A bit of an
So.
underused skill that we're giving some love. And then we've got the Druid next.
Druid.
So here we've got some buffs coming to various spirit
Let's
boons
see.
that aren't seen as much play as others. As an example, Prickle Skin is the one that gives you some thorns. The amount there is being increased by a lot. You can see here in Season
Thorns.
2, it gives about 300 at this level. And then Season 3, I think it's doing about 4x what it used to. So some big buffs
Spirit
coming to various spirit
boons.
boons that are underused.
Oh, I don't think I'd used Spirit
And
Boons
then
before.
also Rabies is getting quite a few upgrades.
Oh, yeah, I
We
never
got a new
used Druid.
legendary
Yeah, that's
coming in
right.
For Rabies, that's pretty neat. And
The
then we also have
Druid,
a buff to enhance Rabies, so
when I
for
tried
all the
Druid, it
buffs
was
spreading your
like
poisons
the
among
beta,
enemies,
and they didn't have
you're gonna
that
be a little bit
character
happy with Season
stuff.
3. So here again, we got some buffs. I put Rabies here, but also Lightning Storm, and we'll be showing off a new unique there too. I'm actually probably going to play Lightning Storm in Season 3 because it's got a really cool unique coming that we're going to
Lightning Storm.
so we'll have that to look
Okay.
forward to.
Yeah, we're so excited for you to show these uniques. I think people are gonna
Necromancer.
builds for those classes to some of those uniques.
They're pretty. I mean, we have uniques coming for every class. We're just going to be showing those two off today. Again, not everything, but they're pretty cool. Last but not least, we've got Necromancer. So Blood and Iron Golems. So fun fact for those of you who didn't know, but the Bone Golem, when it attacks enemies with its normal attack, it actually cleaves and hits nearby enemies. And the Blood and Iron Golems didn't, and they were very jealous and unhappy. And so we just decided to give it to them. So now all your golems,
Yeah,
friends are
I have
gonna
a
AoE
bone
when they attack.
I've got a
I
minion
mentioned putting it in the
Necro.
note here, but also just golems in general.
A
are getting
a
some buffs. I
minion
think
build
even some other minion
Necro
buffs
on
across the board.
my
But you can see those in the patch notes.
Season 2 character.
And then quality of life change
Blood
coming is that
Surge.
Bone Prison, friendly players and your minions can now move through them. You know, we've seen some situations. I
Bone
know I've played it,
Prison.
where you'll bone prison an enemy and you're a minion build, and then your minions actually
Bone
can't get
prison's
to the
never
enemy,
been
or,
a
you know, they want to go somewhere else. And the
super
bone prison actually
popular
blocks
skill
them.
in
So now
Diablo.
you and your friends will just be able to go through it. It'll be a lot more usable. And then we got a lot of Bone Spirit upgrades, including a redesign of one of the aspects, which is the aspect of Swelling Curse. I think Bone Spirit players are going to be really happy. So you can see here on the left is kind of the old version of Bone Spirit, and it basically dealt increased damage based on distance traveled. And the gameplay there was you want to be kind of far away from your enemy and then let it slowly creep towards them. It would do more damage. But it turns out Bone Spirit players really just kind of shotgun it and try and get next to enemies. So it wasn't really very usable or good most of the time. So now we changed it where this legendary gives you everything a Bone Spirit player would want. You get more crit chance on Bone Spirit, which means its CDR goes down thanks to its upgrades. And then for when you hit enemies, your max essence is temporarily increased, which means more damage on Bone Spirit. So this really just kind of gives you everything.
I was thinking about Bone Spirit when I was making my Necromancer, but it didn't seem
so here again, we got some
that appealing. But if I play Necro again,
so if you use either of those,
maybe
you'll be eating pretty
I
well
try
this season.
that.
And again, these are just some examples. We got a lot more stuff in the patch notes for everybody. Next, let's go over the couple of new uniques. So the first one is that Meteor one I talked about. So this unique is the Starfall Coordinate. It basically being like a spender skill into a charge-based skill. So now you can actually run Meteor with other things like Fireball or Incinerate or Firewall. And it makes it into a very powerful cooldown-based skill that summons a bunch of meteors. It also synergizes with your enchantment, and you basically just drop a lot more meteors on around like carpet bombing enemies with them. It's pretty awesome.
Okay,
And
that looks cool.
The next one is the new Druid unique. This is for Lightning Storm. Basically,
I
what
like
this
that
does is
lightning.
It makes your Lightning Storm grow quicker, so you can get up to that maximum amount. I think it's 4 or 5 stacks really quickly. And then also when your lightning bolts crit, an additional lightning bolt will come down and do more damage. And that additional lightning bolt also, it's still a lightning storm lightning bolt. So you get all of your synergies with all of your other effects. So basically it turns into lightning everywhere. Is just pretty cool when you combine it with all of the other lightning-based legendaries and stuff.
Class balance going forward.
I kind of want to talk a little bit about how we've been viewing class balance and how we're going to be thinking about going forward in Season 3 and beyond. So one of the things that we've been talking about a lot on the team is kind of thinking about how should we be updating the game when it comes to buffing and nerfing classes and builds, and then also how often should we update it. And I kind of want to get a little into the weeds here to understand where we're coming from.
Okay.
So first is that we want to balance kind of two competing concepts that are always at odds with each other that we believe players want that really make for a fun game and a fun experience, particularly in Diablo 4. But this is honestly kind of true for most games as far as when they update when it comes to balance. So the first one is we believe that players really want to feel like you all can have fun with powerful builds that you discover. Kind of a core part of playing these games is you think outside the box, or you discover something, or maybe even you follow a guide, but you find something that's really cool and awesome, and then you want to go wreck demons and kill stuff with it, right? You want to feel like you have this sense of permanence where you can make something, it's going to be cool, and you can go and have fun with it. But then on the flip side, here we also believe that players want the meta to refresh so that the same things aren't obviously the best choices forever. Right? Looking back at Season 2, easy thing to point to is Ball Lightning, right? Ball Lightning was really fun and awesome. Newsflash, it was also kind of bugged. But, during Season 2, a lot of people had a lot of fun with it. But we believe that, if we just kept things like Ball Lightning or Hoda Barb or these things that are really powerful for many seasons over and over, not only Sorcerer players in the case of Ball Lightning, but even players of other classes would start to feel this kind of gravitational pull and a lot of pressure to play the things that are obviously more powerful than other things. And then players would start to feel pulled into being forced to play very specific things. And so kind of this dichotomy of these two competing factors where you want to have a sense of permanence and finding things and having fun and not being afraid that Blizzard's going to take it away from you. But you also want to have a sense of, the same thing isn't strong forever. And you look at the leaderboards or you look on forums or wherever you
pretty good
feedback, and everybody just is
good concept discussion here.
Everything is viable, right? So in this vein, some of the larger changes that you're going to see in Season 3 that are kind of bug fixes or nerfs, and before a lot during BlizzCon and before we've talked about how you want to give
Bye Ball Lightning.
So these are the things you're going to see. At the launch of Season 3
Twisting
that are kind of
Blades was
the
definitely
power mode.
popular.
The first one is the Ball Lightning enchantment, or enhancement, sorry, is causing it to deal too much damage, obviously. The rogues have also been getting extra combo points via very specific unique interactions. That's made them very powerful. Twisting Blades, again on the rogue, and Poison Imbue have had some interactions that we're cleaning up that makes it do more damage than was intended. The Druid very recently kind of climbed to the top of the power level in the game due to kind of an unfortunate interaction with Blurred Beast, where you can double dip damage. And then really we've had a couple cases like this earlier in the game, so we're redesigning this legendary power, where you can kind of apply a dot or some effect, and then something else does damage based on the dot, or dealing damage on something else, and then that damage double dips and then just goes into crazy town really quick. So we're nipping that in the bud. For the Barbarian, the Hammer of the Ancients, the Violent Hammer of the Ancients, which is one of the upgrades that you can get, was always being applied whether or not you had it, and we're cleaning that up. So basically everybody would always take the other upgrade, and then they were getting both. And then Overpower, this is more of an oversight, not a bug, but it was kind of just too strong in general. If you remember when Season 2 launched, we redid all the combat math in the game, and back then Overpower, nobody was really playing it. And then we really wanted to give it some love, and we definitely did. So it's a little bit too strong right now, and so it's just getting toned down. And now next I want to talk about our season roadmap. Kind of,
the most important
when we're talking about how we think about how often we should update the game, we wanted to let you, the community, know kind of what the conclusions we came to and what we're going to be doing.
So
right now our plan is to update the game twice per season when it comes to class balance.
Season launch, mid-season
update. We're going to do one update at the launch of a season where you're going to see more kind of large-scale things. The meta is kind of expected to shift a little more. And then we also plan to do a mid-season update, and that'll come somewhere around the center of the season, depending on the exact dates of the patch cycle. So you'll get a little bit smaller of an update there, but still something that'll, do a bunch of buffs, and we're going to detail what you can expect from these. So first, let's talk about season launch and what you can expect when a new season comes, when it comes to classes and systems, so on balance.
Okay.
So the first thing is we're going to be giving you some new content. You can count on this. We're going to be giving new legendaries that are added to the game.
Amount is variable, but every class gets something.
Variable, but what we can commit to is that every class should be getting something new in this space. So you can expect some amount of new legendaries and some amount of new uniques that'll give you new toys to play with. Next, there are balance updates. We'll be doing both balance and design updates for all the classes. And by design updates, I mean, some more in-depth things where we change around functionality rather than just moving numbers up and down. Again, the amount is variable here. It kind of depends on the needs of the game at the time and how much other stuff that we're doing. But as a general idea, just so you can know what to expect, we plan to do many buffs to things that are underperforming, a few nerfs to the things that are really overperforming, and then bug fixes, which can honestly be both buffs or nerfs, depending on what the actual bug is. And then we also plan to do other game updates. Our team isn't really only just doing classes. We also look at monster balance and feel. We do systems with drop rates and things like that. How quickly players can get things that let them have access to different types of content, all of that. So you can expect that at the beginning of a season. And then last but not least are larger updates and initiatives, right? These aren't guaranteed every season, but we want to launch these when they're ready. These are kind of, the big things that really shake up the game and change how players fundamentally interact with things. An example of some things here, or a couple things that we did in Season 2, we updated the resistance math and combat math to the game, and that was kind of a really big change of just how players interact with monsters and how they interact with their gear and stats and how they scale things. But we also do support for other things that might not seem so obvious, like content like Abattoir of Zir, where we have to go and look at the monsters, we have to look at the scaling, we have to when they do these things. So we support all of those larger updates and initiatives as well, and you can expect these kinds of things going forward in seasons. But again, not every season.
Audio was cutting out a little bit.
On when it's ready to come out. And next, let's talk about the mid-season patch and kind of what that looks like. So the first thing is we want to bring back previous season fan favorites. One of the nice things about a seasonal kind of model for a game is that we can experiment with things and then bring back the things that work. So an example of where we did this before was the Malignant Reigns. A lot of the Malignant Hearts in Season 1 had really cool designs that people really liked and got attached to. And we were able to bring that back in the form of unique reigns, right? Going forward, we think that the way that we bring back these designs could be legendaries, uniques, or even other ways, right? Like we can maybe just add it as
very good. That's how Path of Exile does it.
Skill tree. We don't really want to be limited to it must always be uniques or it must always be legendaries. But what we do want to limit ourselves to is that we definitely want to promise that we can do one thing per class. And we also think that we can pull from all seasonal designs, not only from the previous season, right? If the design of the power mechanic of a season doesn't really fit into something that's evergreen for players, then we don't want to be limited to trying to shoehorn
they
it in.
need
Just bring back,
more
maybe
interesting items for sure. That's where the game is lacking.
Really got attached to. We don't want to be limited to like, oh, we can only bring back 4 or 5 things, and then we can never bring more. So we're just kind of look like what happened in the past and people liked, and then bring some of those things back. And then the balance updates, we also want to do this in the mid-season patch. The scope of this will be smaller compared to the beginning of the season. And we also want to do other game updates, you know, like I said before, to monsters, systems, drop rates, and some of those things. We also want to try and mix in a lot of buffs for each class. And then we will be doing bug fixes, and these will be both buffs and nerfs. And we'll go into a little more detail of that in a minute. And then we're really going to try and hit this goal. No promises. These are famous last words for me. But, you know, we want to try and do few to no nerfs that really aren't bugs. And our kind of thinking and philosophy here is that we know that, unlike the beginning of a season, players spent a lot of time farming for these things. And we don't want you to be scared of making stuff and then
really like
take it away
this.
if it's too strong, right? And we want to have a sense of permanence when you start a season, that you can try and target something that's cool and then finish it. But you know, sometimes we need to if something's way too far out of control, particularly now that we have the gauntlet coming in. And our plan is to really broadcast the nerfs, whether they're design or bug fixes, before the mid-season update, so that you have an idea of what's coming, so that you can adjust your builds and play accordingly.
Okay, that's good.
So now let's give
really good, actually.
Kind of, you know, if these things had existed in Season 3 and beyond, how would we think about and how would we handle these in a mid-season patch? So, you know, in Season 2, like I mentioned before, the
Violent Hammer of the
Ancients was just always being applied, right? Basically, overpower builds were just getting 30% more multiplicative damage for free. It was a bug, not intended at all. This is something that we would fix in a mid-season patch. So, like, if this happened in Season 3, you could expect that in the mid-season patch, we would bug fix this, and, you know, that would be a nerf to that build. On the other hand, a little bit more complicated one. So if you remember Ossified SNC Necromancer players, this was your key passive, and it was really good. It basically says that your bone skills deal more damage based on each point of essence you have above 50. The gameplay here that we had intended was, you know, you try and increase your mass essence, which is a fun little itemization game that you have. But then you also have some gameplay of trying to only cast and then get back to max as soon as you can. So you care about resource regen. Like, there's all these cool gameplay and itemization things going on. What we didn't anticipate, though, was that players would get as much max essence as they were able to, or that they were able to keep it as high as they were able to. And those were really just oversights on our part. So then in Season 2, you know, we nerfed this by 50%, a whopping 50%. And I still think this is probably one of the strongest key passives in the game. That's how good it was.
I think I might have taken that one.
But, you know, it still keeps all the gameplay that it had before. So what if this existed in Season 3? Well, here, this would kind of be more of a question mark for us. We may fix it in the mid-season patch. We would definitely fix it at the start of next season. But technically, this isn't a bug. It's just something that is just really strong that we kind of had an oversight about. Here, we would be looking at, you know, community feedback. How badly is it warping the meta? Are other builds in Necromancer?
See, this guy is really good talking about
so much better. We'd be looking at
philosophy of patching and stuff.
And then make a judgment.
It's a little into the weeds if you're not,
really noodly. Sometimes we may be wrong,
if you're just a casual player and you don't really care about this kind of stuff, but
keep the game healthy.
If you're like going for leaderboards and stuff,
Recap, a TLDR. First, our
trying to be the
strategy
best,
is to communicate
then
early and communicate often. We want to let you know, particularly when it comes to
it does kind of affect that experience.
And then again, at the start of the season, you can expect some new content in the form of legendaries and uniques. We'll also be getting some more in-depth balance updates, including design updates to things that we feel we could do better at. Lots of buffs, few nerfs, but bug fixes that are both buffs and nerfs to keep the game in a healthy state. And then in the mid-season patch, you get new content in the form of previous fan favorites from other seasons. And then we will be doing a balance patch. It'll be a bit smaller. It'll be mostly buffs, and then bug fixes that are both buffs and nerfs. And hopefully few to no design nerfs is what we're going to try and commit to. And so again, the reason why we're doing this is we really want you to know kind of where we're thinking, and we want to try and commit to concrete things when we can. And this is something that we feel we can commit to you as far as what we bring to Diablo 4 going forward. Again, last thing is that we are open to feedback on this. This isn't set in stone that forevermore will be only 2 updates per season when it comes to balance. We're trying to find that right amount of time where you feel like you can experiment and have fun, but the same thing isn't strong forever. So, please give us your feedback. Let us know what you think. But this is how we're going to start, and then we're going to go from here. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Adam, for going over all the balance changes coming for Season 3, along with the roadmap, which is really important. And so that's a big thing that we will make sure we do, is obviously communicate often, communicate early, specifically about all the balance changes that may occur with the start of a season, and of course with that mid-season patch. And just for like better understanding within the community, if you follow version numbers of our updates, because we usually do client patches with big patches, usually mid-season patches land around the 0.3 variant of a patch, if you want to go specifically in that. We do have a lot of other quality of life items that are also coming within Season 3 that we do want to get into before we jump into Q&A, and we did want to tackle some of these because these are really
here
big.
we go.
These are based off of players and what they're telling us, and of course things and improvements that we've already talked about that are now actually coming into Diablo 4. One big thing that I know that we mentioned in one of our prior streams with a Campfire chat, Mr. Joe Shelley, our game director, actually brought up.
This is a big update.
Helltides was, something we learned within.
This might actually convince me to try out this season. Helltides were the most annoying.
Were kind of timed in specific moments, and Helltides was something that we wanted to improve upon for players, and now Helltides will actually be up pretty much all the time, so players will be able to actually jump into Helltides whenever they need to. There is a 5-minute break to kind of reset the zone and stuff, but every hour you will be able to jump into a Helltide, which is great. So it's more opportunities to earn cinders, and of course more opportunities to earn and obtain loot, or even things like living steel and stuff to kind of go through the Uber boss ladder, which is great. The other thing is, and this is
WASD,
because I don't know how people actually pronounce this.
All these games are adding it into their game now.
Some people call it WASD, some people call it WASD.
We need a poll up stat.
I almost want to put a poll up within.
I'm not really a big WASD person for this kind of game.
But WASD controls are coming to Diablo 4. This is actually something we talked about way back at the launch of the game. We heard a lot.
Actually, for this game, it might not be too bad. But for a Path of Exile, I know they're adding it in for Path of Exile 2, but in Path of Exile you got the Q, WERT items for using skills, and then the flash system on the numbers. That's just way too much on one hand to manage. So.
We're also really lucky.
But for Diablo, where there's not a whole lot, it might work.
Exactly. Now, the players have even more precise control to avoid.
WASD feels very good with the trap.
WASD.
However you want to pronounce it, that is going to be.
They like WASD.
Chat likes WASD according to Rich.
It's okay to be wrong.
But yeah, it is coming to the game, and what's really great about this as well is that it is customizable. You can actually change things out and stuff if you like. So really happy to see it, and we're happy to hear feedback from players and their experiences with it once they jump into Season 3. And then, of course, we have a new respec mode coming to the skill trees.
Yes.
This is respec.
Let's see what the new respec mode is.
A more optimized way of being able to do so.
They're not going to show it.
Community item that a lot of players have been asking for. This kind of goes hand in hand with the opportunity of actually taking your whole Paragon board and completely resetting it before, as opposed to doing it one by one that we had beforehand.
It's a lot less.
How much time we got left here?
There's more opportunities to actually respec and do it in a much more organized fashion with this. And then this has been a huge
gold
one.
trading.
This is specifically for console players. I probably get this question maybe once every single day about gold trading. Obviously, more gold is in the Diablo 4 economy or ecosphere with seasons, especially since season 2. And for console users, like trading gold has been very difficult. It's been slow. You could be there for quite a while trying to trade a significant amount of gold. And so the gold trading UI has been updated for console users. So they'll be able to actually trade gold without having to maybe spend 5 to 10 minutes doing so in one trade. So I know that is a thing that players have been asking for. So we're happy that's actually being included. And then this one is also kind of calling back to what
higher item scaling.
A prior Campfire chat, which was
I wonder what this would be.
Higher item scaling in World Tier 4. I think he used a really good example of how World Bosses was kind of like, hey, you get 925 gear off of them, and at times it feels like maybe that's like the most optimized way of doing it, and it didn't feel very rewarding in other types of activities such as like Nightmare Dungeons, for example. So higher item scaling in World Tier 4 is actually coming into Season 3 and going forward for Diablo 4. So even when you're doing like higher Nightmare Dungeons, you're going to have way more opportunities of actually obtaining high level 925 gear, as opposed to before, where it was a much lower chance and it felt like you should be doing other types of activities beforehand. So making sure that there's more options available as opposed to just kind of pigeonholing yourself into maybe timed world bosses and stuff like that from that end.
That'll make Nightmare Dungeons a little bit better, I guess.
A point of feedback that we've gotten from a lot of players, and this is something that we kind of optimized within season 2.
Yeah, this is the one that I don't think I've been able to get.
Feedback was really big, and so we're actually increasing opportunities.
No, I actually got the items, but the drop rate was pretty low.
Kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier
the rate was pretty low. So
with the boss ladder,
this is a good change.
Kind of jump into those. So there'll be additional summoning items for Beast and Ice, which will then of course help you eventually get to Uber. And this goes hand in hand with some of the living steel buffs that we ended up doing in season 2 within Helltide. So a lot of quality of life updates, and there's additional ones that players will end up seeing within the patch notes that will be releasing tomorrow. So you should check out the patch notes. I'll be hitting on Diablo4.com specifically for all the details and all the items that even Adam Jackson was talking about earlier. Now we come to the part where I always mess up names, but actually before we do that,
all right, now we're gonna get questions.
Breaking order production. Our wonderful production group here is gonna be like, "What's wrong with you, Adam?" One thing I did want to call out is we actually have a new promo for Twitch starting with season 3, and that is our support a streamer promo. We had the support a streamer for season 1. We have it again for season 2. It is a new amount that players can actually earn. This time it's different. Before we only had a select group of streamers. I think it was like around like 2,000 streamers that signed up and opted in. Now it's for any streamer that streams Diablo 4. Thank you, Twitch, for making engineering updates.
That's nice.
For it to be just across the whole entire category. Any streamer that is streaming Diablo 4, if you're a viewer and you happen to be watching them, you can either purchase a sub from them or gift a sub, and to a total of 2. So it could be 1 gifted, 1 purchase, or 2 gifted, and you'll actually end up earning the mount as well. You just need to make sure that your Battle.net account is actually linked with your Twitch account, and you are watching a participating Diablo 4 streamer. It'll note it on their channels and stuff for you to earn that mount. So that is coming, and there'll be a blog later today about that specific Twitch supporter streamer program that's going to be launching with the start of season 3 on January 23rd. So make sure to check it out, and I believe it's actually going to be running for quite a while, like a month or so. So players will be able to kind of take part in that from their end. But now our favorite part, which is the Q&A, and we're actually going to be going back and forth between Irvine and here in Albany, because Adam Jackson, of course, is still with us to answer any specific questions related to
Q&A should be good.
Balance that players may have. But I know one question that as we queue up questions specifically from our side and have my live feed right here, we'll attempt to not butcher names. Maybe I will. Spoilers. But one question that we do have is, how have the team's thoughts changed in regards to balance since Diablo 4's release? This is a question for Mr. Adam Jackson in Irvine. If you could help us with that answer.
Yeah, let me think. it's a deep question, but I think okay. So I guess we'll start with, because there's like a long history of balance, right? I think there's actually a very good story, and we could start even before launch and going into launch and how we thought about things. But I think we'll start with like season 1 and the transition from kind of the launch version of the game into our first season.
Well,
right?
the game wasn't balanced in the
Obviously,
beginning.
in the launch of the game, we had some pretty benign ideals, I think, of, hey, we want all the classes to be within a certain power range of each other, and everything should be viable for everyone, and, basically everything feels good, and there's a lot of different ways to play, right? And then one of the issues that we ran into this season 1 that I think is interesting to talk about is we realized that in our quest to make items and item stats really fun and powerful and interesting, we had over budgeted on quite a few of them. And I think just in the interest of time, I'll pick on cooldown reduction. It's a very scary stat to me and the team. So, we realized in the launch version game, the cooldown reduction.
Oh yeah, I
was
remember
high,
that.
right? And
They were going
some
crazy
players
over the
basically able to solve
cooldowns.
cooldown reduction, using that with air quotes, and get to a point where they had very low, if any, cooldowns on a lot of their skills. And this was true for
I'm not really a
not just
big
cooldown
fan
reduction.
of
One of the problems
cooldowns
that we
in
knew was gonna come up,
games.
that was a kind of future us problem, or really almost immediately us problem, is that if we let players solve these things, whether it's defensive stats, cooldown reduction, resource, whatever it may be, and we let them solve it only in gear, then we're going to get to a state where we can't give exciting things to you anymore that you're going to be really happy about and that will feel impactful, because you just got it all in gear, right? And while gear does need to be cool and interesting, if you completely solve these things, I can't give you a legendary power, or I can't give you something late game that really buffs and changes your build in a meaningful way if you got it from just one source. And so then we launched season 1, and we're like, okay, we're going to kind of eat our vegetables here, and we're going to preserve the long-term health of the game, but we're going to do these very necessary nerfs, and there were quite a few, right? And even at the time we did this, we knew, we tried to mix in a bunch of buffs and, try and make it feel good, but we just didn't hit the mark, right? We kind of failed in that endeavor. We did, do the necessary things to bring the game in a long-term healthy state, but it came at the cost of player fun and player sentiment. And so you went from, the beginning preseason to season 1, and the game overall just got quite a bit less fun because you were just less powerful and you weren't compensated enough from the player point of view. And
Yep.
so we kind of learned a lesson.
Sounds
there,
about
we
right.
need to be a little bit more thoughtful and careful.
Exactly
of
what
when
it
we roll out these
seemed
things and
like.
how we roll them out, and then also how we communicate it, right? Because we didn't really tell people the intricacies of these problems. We just came out with a patch and let you figure it out, and that didn't go too well, right? So then in season 2 came around, and we did a big combat math update to the game. We were kind of a little worried because we had to kind of thread this needle of, we also were nerfing player power because we changed a lot of multiplicative synergies to be additive, but we wanted to do it in a way where you felt more powerful and it felt more fun and fair. So we had to do a lot of more work on the monster side and balance monsters to the new expected player power when vulnerable is not always multiplicative and all these other crazy things going on. And I think we threaded that needle really well. A little bit to my surprise, I'll be honest. I was a little scared going into it because it's just such a big update, right? And then we also decided during season 2, when it came to balance, that instead of trying to, nerf and whack-a-mole things that are really strong and immediately take them away, because it's not supposed to be that way, we just kind of let it ride. And so that's why you saw things like, Ball Lightning, Hoda Barb, the Druid, Poison Druid, Rogue Combo, like many classes had just something that was kind of crazy. And we just let it go. But even now, towards the end of season 2, we're seeing that, some people are starting to be a little upset, like, hey, these same builds are just killing everything. And if I want to do the really hard content, I have to be one of these things because that's the only thing that works. And obviously, we don't want that to be the future of the game forever. And so now we're trying to come up with a more balanced approach of how we see these things, and that's why,
Well, the way
again,
you
I was
do that
saying
is you
kind of in my
make other
presentation, we're
skills
thinking a lot of, how
viable
often
as
do we
well.
update actually really matters, I think, from your point of view as
You
a
don't
player,
nerf, you
because that determines
buff.
how long you are safe to do something that feels crazy and awesome and powerful.
Buff the other
And
stuff.
also how we update the game matters as well, of like, hey, are we okay with 1 or 2 things being really strong for a while, or what is the range that something can be too strong before
It's
we
never
consider it a problem?
smart to take
That's
things
another
away
subject
from
that maybe I'd like to go
people
into in
unless
the
you
future,
truly
or
have
in
to.
the future, but I think that kind
in
of answers the
games,
question. It's
so
already a little long-winded.
buffing low-level
No, I
stuff is the
appreciate it,
best
Adam, and,
policy for
So we're gonna
should
go through
be
some
the
additional questions that might
policy.
be,
So
going back to Adam, but I know one question that we at least have gotten regarding season 3 is this is from Ice Vixen. am attempting. What about group play in vaults? How does that specifically work? Because obviously there's like the warding buff and everything. How do rewards kind of associate with that?
Right, so you are able to group up and play through a vault. And yeah, it behaves pretty much like any other Nightmare dungeon. And so, you know, there are instances where if you leave the dungeon, you will lose the buff. So we're trying to avoid some cases where players might try to cheat their way to the end.
Yeah.
But overall, you know, we're trying to be as supportive as possible for group play.
Awesome, makes sense. And then I know this is a question back for Adam, a popular question regarding minion builds and plans for minion builds. I know this one has been
minions
quite often. What are the plans for like maybe Necromancer or Druid minion build specifically?
Yeah,
Druid minions.
All the time. So
I can't say enough how much I'm disappointed in the Druid minions.
We know the feedback that people want minion builds to be kind of more impactful, and these are now I'm kind of going into my opinion, but I think a lot of that feedback comes from a combination of, you know, they don't feel necessarily maybe as powerful as other builds, which we can and we do. And if you've noticed in our past patches, we've consistently been number buffing minion builds, and even this patch does have some number buffs in that realm. But I think a more complicated, difficult problem to solve is kind of the relationship between the player and the minion, and making the minions feel really cool and awesome, and your investment into them really pay off in a way that is kind of more visceral. That is a harder problem to solve. That requires it's in my mind, and I'm not promising anything, but you know, these are things like, you know, rethinking of how the Book of the Dead upgrades work, and that relationship between sacrificing and minion upgrades. And really trying to make them do more visually, I think, cool and awesome things, and maybe more reacting to you, and so you feel like they're doing a lot more.
I think the question was mostly might have been more about nerfs.
We don't have anything to announce right now as far as that. And Druid Companions, I think, are kind of in a similar vein, even though they don't have quite the same support in fantasy that Necromancer does, because they don't have a Book of the Dead, for example. But I think players really just want this visceral feeling, like I've got my gain with me, and we're all going and messing with stuff. So, you know, we're doing number buffs now. It is a thing that we are looking at. I don't have any promises of when, because again, this is something that I think is a little more difficult to tackle, and we have other things that we're tackling that are, you know, a little more difficult coming in the near future. But it is something that we know of and that will definitely be coming. I just don't know when.
Awesome,
Okay.
I appreciate it. A question related to Uber uniques on Uber vaults. Is that something that players can find there, or like what can they find in that?
So Uber uniques are still the domain of Duriel at this point. That's going to be your best shot for getting Uber uniques. But we still wanted to make the Uber Vault rewarding. And so for the Seneschal construct, we've actually created several unique tuning stones, which really we haven't given away too much information about, but defeating Uber Malphus is going to be the only way to earn those.
Awesome. Yeah. So players will be able to get really, really powerful, unique tuning stones specifically from those. And I will spoil it a little bit. We did technically have PC Gamer did a good interview with Sean, and I know it was kind of revealed specifically in one of the shots there. So if people want a sneak peek of what one does, there is an opportunity to actually check it out there. So people can actually see it there. Another question back for Adam.
Let's go.
Another big question within chat. Oh, by the way, Beefcake Monster asked that last question. I forgot names, but
Come on.
this was actually asked by a lot of people, so just many names specifically.
Sure.
Snapshotting. Snapshotting is something that kind of appeared, especially as players were going through Abattoir of Zir. Do we have any plans regarding snapshotting and what we might do for that?
Yeah, we do have things coming. I don't have anything to announce today. It won't be at the beginning of Season 3, but we do have fixes coming for snapshotting. We're aware of the problem.
I'm not sure what that means.
It came out a little hot at the end of Season 2, but yeah, we've talked about it. We've seen it. We kind of know the intricacies of it, and we'll be taking a look at it in the near future.
Awesome, I appreciate it. A question that I've also seen a few times in chat about Zoltan Cool. Funny enough, do we like encounter Zoltan Cool in this?
Do not encounter him. He is still dead. No digging up his head this time. But you will hear his voice. We have several lore books that drop throughout the vaults, and generally his presence. And Ayujan speaks of him quite often.
Of course, we have to hear Zoltan Cool and his wonderful voice of talking down to everyone. So that makes perfect sense. I know a question regarding the vault specifically. Is that an area that players can actually maybe potentially level up Paragon glyphs, or is that still something that is tied to Nightmare?
If you can't upgrade glyphs in vaults,
should work the same way as Nightmare Dungeons in that respect.
Oh, okay.
You should be able to level up your glyphs there too.
Awesome. Yeah. I know
yeah, because then if you can't upgrade your glyphs in Nightmare Dungeons, then what's the point?
That serve also the same. Like, can I do almost like get both objectives in one type of thing, which you now can? So then that was from Galley055 who asked that question specifically. And then I know a question we have from UN Tanks Up. Bad, terrible, Adam. How many times can we do the gauntlet in a week?
So we have not restricted players' access to the gauntlet. I think it's the type of content we want people to try and master. And in order to be able to do that, you've got to be able to practice and you've got to be able to improve. And so really you can play it as much or as little as you want.
The truth is they didn't really need to talk about the gauntlet that much here.
The only requirement right now is that
because it's not going to be released until like the
you think you're ready.
mid-season.
So,
I assume it'll be the mid-season patch.
Specifically before gauntlets, specifically before hitting level 100. It's usually preferred to go in at level 100, but you can.
So this campfire could have been a lot shorter.
You can do it as many times as you want, which is really cool. So it's like I'm excited to see how players optimize because of course they change every single week and they get to kind of like learn and they get to kind of maybe modify based on how many people are within their party, which is really, really cool. A question that we also have been getting regarding some of the I lost my question now. I'm so bad at this.
Come on.
Optimization updates that we have talked about in the past. A lot of people are asking like, hey, is that still on track for season 4? This one was specifically from Fermel. Yes, that is still on track for season 4. We have a really massive itemization update coming specifically for that season. And we'll have more news to share as we get closer to season 4. But for right now, we don't have news to share with the community for season 3 regarding that, but it will be pretty significant, and we'll be talking about that more in a future stream here coming down the line. And then let's see, any updates regarding like some of the group finders or social features? I know that is also another big question that a lot of players have been asking over the last couple months, specifically about, hey, are we making any changes and everything towards that? And really, this is something that we addressed at BlizzCon as well. I think Tiffany answered this one, where it is something that we're looking into, and the team is obviously seeing the feedback, and it's something that we're planning on working and making better through the lifetime of Diablo 4. So players can expect to see better and more optimizations towards the social features and the friend finder specifically from that end.
How about fixing the core game? Come on.
Let's see. Do we get more sources of Uber uniques? For this specific season, really the best way of grabbing Uber uniques is through the boss ladder for sure, through Uber Duriel. And there are more, you can of course find Uber uniques anytime throughout the game. It's just there are higher chances through Uber Duriel, and that is still the same specifically for this season. And there are of course now more opportunities to go into that fight now, since we've like amped up a lot of the drops specifically around like Living Steel from season 2 to the Beast of Nice summoning items now with season 3, so players will actually be able to kind of jump into Uber Duriel specifically from that.
Come on. Seriously?
I know we get a lot of questions about Field of View. from players asking
FOV.
like, hey, is there any update of like, are you guys planning on actually
Don't expect anything.
Right now we don't have any plans towards that. It's just something that we've been hearing a lot from players. There's a lot of work that of course has to go into something like that. But whenever we do have an update, we'll make sure to actually provide that specifically on that end. Codex updates is another big thing because people have been asking about the codex updates. I'm just like kind of shotgunning. I'm seeing like words appear in chat. I'm like, oh yeah, that thing. That is something that we talked about before, and that work is currently underway, and that will also be part of a future season. And it is a massive update. It's something that we had talked about beforehand on previous streams, which was kind of helping out with inventory, making sure those specific aspects were like pulled out of inventory and kind of stored within the character or cataloged within the character. So we will have more info on when that actually ends up hitting soon. But there's a ton of things that are coming to D4 to help address a lot of some of this community feedback specifically on that end.
Okay.
And then question regarding Gauntlet. This is from RM Dragonheart. Will you be able to inspect the top players in Gauntlet and see what builds they're potentially using?
So you will be able to inspect the top players from Gauntlet. There will be a link from the leaderboard to a player's profile. And you'll be able to see what they're playing currently. But we do not save a snapshot right now of what they played at that moment.
Got it. Awesome. Yeah. So yeah, if you want to see kind of like, top builds and stuff like that, you have the opportunity to, but it does, if they happen to change their build overnight or something like that, it's going to grab whatever that existing build is specifically from that end. And then I know we've gotten, or this was a question from Max.TV regarding Malphus. Do we have any plans of Malphus becoming maybe potentially an endgame boss outside of the season? Or are we planning on maybe, introducing it in like a boss ladder in the future?
Right, so every season, much as Adam described for Power, we take a look at those elements that we really liked from a previous season to see if we can bring them forward. Certainly people on the team like fighting Malphus. Hopefully you'll enjoy fighting Malphus too. If you like fighting him enough, then perhaps in the future, we could bring him over to the boss ladder.
Yeah,
but,
just like for Sean.
Yeah, but we're no commitments to that quite yet.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I know we went through some questions here, and we're a little over beyond. We were aiming for 9 minutes.
All right, let's see.
A little beyond. It's totally fine. Though.
All right, so
really appreciate. Yeah, a lot of stuff.
Seems like
really appreciate everyone.
This is
if you have additional questions, of course, make sure to
winding down.
Forums. We're always checking it.
Here's the problem
we'll try to
with this game. The core issues are still there.
We can,
They didn't address the world bosses being easy to kill. They're not talking about introducing new world bosses, world raid bosses for like in the overworld.
It's a big one.
Those are like just
always a big patch notes.
useless and easy. They're not challenging.
And we have a lot of.
And then you have nightmare dungeons where they waste your time doing tasks. People just want to go in and get out and get their stuff and go in there as quick as possible. And then you got the Nightmare Dungeon bosses, which are uninspiring, lazy, and just terribly unfun to play against. And those things haven't been addressed. So, it just, for me, it just seems like the priorities are not where they need to be. Not everyone is going to be playing seasons, and so that core experience has to improve somehow. And it seems like they're not doing it. So, I mean, I don't know. Are people liking Nightmare Dungeons now? They're still making you do stupid things in there. They need to get all of that out of there if they ever want to improve it. And then, the bosses have to improve. The boss design has been terrible. So,
I'm looking forward to flying back and saying hi again, Adam.
Anyway.
Thank you guys for of course joining us on this special developer update live stream for season 3. And just a heads up for people that are watching, our friends at Xbox are actually doing an Xbox Developer Direct that's going to be starting here really soon. So make sure to check that out on the Xbox channel on Twitch and on YouTube.
All right.
And of course, we'll be raiding into some of our wonderful Diablo.
I've seen enough.
Twitch, so make sure to tune into them immediately after the stream.
So I might be checking out season 3 just to dip in and dip out at some point. I don't know if I'll do it at launch, but
launching on January 23rd.
I'll probably play Barbarian if I do, but
And yeah,
I don't know.
guys from Albany, really appreciate it.
The Helltide change is probably the biggest change. And yeah, so that's it. That's all I gotta say about this.